Good day, everyone. Well, we had a little bit of a mini celebration yesterday with the NASDAQ finally hitting new all-time highs, closing on all-time highs after many years, a decade and a half of struggle. And that's not to say it's not going to continue to struggle with this QE-laden environment, but it was nice to see that all the majors have now hit new all-time highs. The Seems like the reaction to the Federal Reserve's announcement was bullish. I think one camp would think that that should the economy truly start turning a corner and should that prompt the Fed to raise rates, that would be actually a good sign. And historically speaking, the first rate hike is a bullish event. In the meantime, the Fed has said that they're going to take their time in terms of wanting to be absolutely sure that the economy is actually recovering before they do the first rate hike. So that also was good news for the markets. It sat well with overall price volume action in the majors. Yesterday we saw volume higher across the board. And you always want to see that on up days. The Greek issue has been a broken record, and certainly the markets have these little mini gap downs on that sort of news, but then they've shown themselves to be very quick to recover, or at least not continue their sell-off. So in this latest pullback that we saw in the major averages, I think they were only down a couple percent off their peak prices. So as I've said since December, the up-down oscillation in the major averages continues to diminish. So perhaps also in light of all the leading stocks that have been actionable over the last a few weeks, this does bode well for market internals. So perhaps we will actually see some sort of uptrend in the majors. But again, that remains to be seen. I think the odds are increasingly in favor of that sort of trend taking place. But in the meantime, we will continue to take advantage of individual stock opportunities. I'd like to begin by talking about AMBA. That is one we've put on the list back in May 14th. Wait a minute, let's go, Gil. It seems like this, here we go. Actually, that is not what I, we need a new window. Where did that window go? It was just on my screen. Gil, if you're there, let me see if I can do it this way.
Yeah, you having problems here? Let's see.
Yeah, we need a new window. For some reason, when I started typing, it started typing in the other other window.
Go ahead and try it again. Try it now.
Okay, I'm just going to start typing.
There it is. And hit OK.
I'm not even seeing it. I'm not seeing that normal OK window that pops up.
There it is. See it now?
No, it's strange. It's that normal window that is there is not visible. I see everything else on the screen.
Huh? It's actually coming up. That's odd. I wonder why that's happening.
Yeah, that's very.
Well, go ahead.
I mean, it would only
hit it. How about now? Do you see it?
If it appears on yours, it should automatically appear on mine because everything is updating in real time. On your screen, I can see all the lights flashing, but that window, unfortunately, seems to be missing. Okay, well, I did it on the NASDAQ chart. Yeah, that seems to show okay. All right. Anyway, so we've got AMBA that we put on the list on the 14th. It's, as we wrote to members, it seems to be undergoing some sort of technical intermediate climax top because it's made such a strong move in such a short amount of time. So we've advised investors to make sure they keep their stops tight on this one. So far, it really hasn't done anything wrong. It hasn't even touched its 10-day moving average. It just seems to want to keep going higher. So given that characteristic, yes, keep stops tight on this, but sometimes these climax tops run longer than we think. So maybe you want to make a rule of some sort if it starts to come off on big volume, and maybe if it penetrates its 10-day moving average, maybe that's your initial sell point. Maybe you sell half your position there. In other words, you create these rules based in context with the chart. There's no hard and fast rule, of course. It has to be in real time, in the moment, that the most effective rules tend to work. Also, they have to be within your risk tolerance level. So in other words, if your position size is getting increasingly heavy and making you uncomfortable, then you're more likely to emotionally react inappropriately to a stock that is showing you a lot of gains. So keep that in mind. Keep your emotions in check at all times, so you can make the best decision in real time. Now the next stock is one we put on the list. This was on April 29th. This is AYI.
Hey, Dr. K, can I ask you, what are you seeing on your screen?
Right now I'm seeing, all I'm seeing is the I see two charts on the right-hand side, but the one in the middle is not there.
You don't see
the one that I usually
okay, so you're actually looking at my main monitor. So I'm going to try a couple things. Hold on, everybody. Okay. How about now? What do you see?
It's the same screen. Oh, there we go. That's the screen I'm used to. Now
Okay,
I've got
for
four
some
charts
reason on go to webinar, what would be, this is actually monitor 2 on my setup, and for some reason it's interpreting it as monitor 1. Okay, whatever,
okay,
as long
well,
as we get to the right screen. So
that is mystery solved. All right, now everything's back to normal.
It's been doing strange things lately, so.
Yeah, sometimes these things take a mind of their own. So we got AYI, which was on the list April 29th with its pocket pivot, and that was way back in here. And as you can see, it made a nice move. We were advising members that they might want to start taking profits because it is getting ahead of itself right through this fairly major move here. Yes, the volume was there, but then you can see it went sideways and then it retraced. So your money is just dead money during these weeks. And then we had a sign of life in the form of a pocket pivot on this day here. So in other words, you could have sold it and then you buy it back on that day. Yeah, maybe you're buying it back at the same price, but at least your money's not just sitting in a stock that's doing nothing and actually going down from its peak price. So there's nothing wrong with reinstating your position on this day here. See, we've got SKX. That's an old favorite of ours. That just like AMBA, that one tends to not visit its, well, it's hugging its 10-day basically, and based on this characteristic, you could create a rule that says on violation of the 10-day. In other words, if it closes below the 10-day and then goes below the low of that close, that's your sell point or ultimate sell point. And there's nothing wrong with selling into strength in this market. If you sold into strength, say, on this day here, that's May 20th, as you can see, the stock retraced a bit and then issued a pocket pivot on this day here. So you could have bought it back, as in reconfirmation that the trend is still alive. And it's not doing anything wrong. So create your rules, your sell rules, by always obeying your risk tolerance levels. Now we've got SUPN, and that went on the list on the 21st of May. So that was right in here. And as we said, it had a huge streak, and so for those of you who sell in strength, you probably got out of the position before it had a gap down here. For those of you who sell in weakness, as we said, on this day when it gaps down like this, you just sell the whole position, no questions asked. Right now it's trying to get back on track, but you have no business being in the stock at this point. Wait for the next pocket pivot. If it's a legitimate uptrend, it will issue another pocket pivot in time. Then we've got KYTH, and this one was added to the list. Yeah, no, I know. This one was added to the list on the 2nd. I just wanted everyone to make sure that they know it was a buyout. basically when you see this kind of action, we added it on the 2nd of June. As you can see here, there was a, let me see here, there was a nice, actually, well, 2 days of high volume. This day here was the first, you could say, was a pocket pivot of some sort. And then on this day, of course, it was bought out. When you see this kind of very abnormally tight price action, that screams that the stock has been bought out, but of course you can confirm with the news. So, now take your profits and move on. Finally, the last stock I wanted to discuss is this IPO. It's a leader in its space, GoDaddy, GDDY, and this one was added to the list and on the basis of a pocket pivot, and it's continuing to make a nice, strong move. Keep in mind it is an IPO, so it's subject to more volatility. It's also the type of stock in its space. Being a leader and having a lot of growth potential, it's not going to be a low volatility name. So keep that in mind when seeing that this sort of price action is not abnormal for the stock. For those who sell at a strength, watch it like a hawk, because you might get one more day or 2 more days of this type of action. If it comes down constructively in a tight way, then maybe you hold on your position then. But these sorts of IPOs, my guess is that when this short-term move is done, it is going to correct probably somewhat substantially. So you do want to keep your stops tight on this one, and I do believe it is quite a legitimate name. So it should issue subsequent pocket pivots in the weeks ahead that will allow you to reinvest in the company. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gil.
Okay, let's see. We can see the correct screen now. Wow, it's a good thing I didn't have my porn monitor up there. That would have been troublesome, I think. Anyways, no, nobody looks at porn, right? That's why it's only I think that was the first industry that figured out how to make money on the internet, which is
they made the internet what it was. I think,
yeah,
what did they say?
exactly. They were the pioneers. They were the pioneers.
And
so I don't know.
it just addresses human nature and what it is, and what people and religions try to shove under the rug out of shame, and yet we're made from this. So,
exactly. So porn is on the cutting edge. You gotta love it. So for so many reasons. Anyways, only the sick watched porn. What does that mean? The sick? Is that right? Either that or, well, never mind. I'm not going there. Let's see. Okay, so what do we like? Let's see. Some names that are interesting this morning. Red Hat came out with earnings. They're trying to do this little pocket pivot maneuver here, and that looks decent. I guess could be bought. I don't know. What do you think of this one, Dr. You got any take on it? Here's the weekly chart. It's actually been an uptrend, so it looks pretty good. And
yeah, it had a good earnings report, the earnings are trying to accelerate. The fundamentals look better than they have, but I don't think this is going to blow the doors off anything. The technical action is excellent, though. I mean, it just gets tighter and tighter. So you could take a very low-risk position in this because of the very clean technical pattern.
Let's see, we got Cuervo. Yesterday, well, you had a little volume drop right here. Well, not really a volume drop, but you had the volume come in a bit down to about average at the 10-day. This thing's probably best bought on pullback, so that's acting okay. GoDaddy, this was buyable down in here. This is really the place to buy it. So now, like Dr. K was saying, it's pretty extended, and probably will have a good yank back when it does. But I think you may want to keep an eye on that, because that may be your next buy point. Solar Edge is maybe an example of something like GoDaddy running up very quickly. It's a smaller stock. It only trades 468,000, well, say 469,000 shares a day. But notice how it held the 20-day on the pullback here, and now you're kind of drifting along. Volume's drying up, so it's possible it could set up again. You're sort of in a little flag. This thing has not formed a base since it came public. So you might be looking for it to form its first one. So for your 2 weeks into a little flag, maybe it goes a little tight sideways in here. I'd be watching this if you like the stock. The solar area, though, for the most part, remains junk. First Solar looks like junk. Solar City looks like trying to rally back up, but it's below the 50-day. The one that's kind of coming back here is, whoops, SunPower, which flashed a sort of a bottom fishing pocket pivot off the 200-day line here, and then another one at the 50, and it's coming in. So that's not really happening. Their SunPower and First Solar's Yield Co. came public today at 20 bucks, I think. I don't know, is that a great thing? Apparently not. The stocks aren't running up on it. But I noticed there's another one that is like a Yield Co. Abengoa, which is actually in a big cup with handle. You can see sort of on the weekly chart here. And I think these are mostly yield plays, though. So with the Fed pretty much on hold when it comes to raising interest rates, these, it has the added kicker of the solar thing and a decent yield. I think it's like 3.8%, something like that. Let me check that. That's 3.7%. So, and so if you like yield stocks, here's one for you. Oh, only the SEC watch more. Securities and Exchange Commission. Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, that's right, huh? And the IRS too, don't they? All the employees there, because they're so busy doing so many things. Let's see. Cyber, little pullback this morning. It doesn't want to come in. On the breakout day, you had it come under 70 briefly. My thinking was if you had bought it down here and you wanted to buy on that pullback, you could. Coming in right in here, it's kind of an iffy proposition because you could have a good yank back into the 10-day line, which if I saw it, I'd be all over the stock. Tesla, Panasonic came out and said that they don't see the same battery production numbers that Tesla does, but it's not killing the stock. You had a pocket pivot here. This, however, was viable along the 10-day and the 20-day as it was getting tight in here. Took a little time, but after about 2-3 weeks of this and one fake out to the upside, a pocket pivot, and then a breakdown, that sort of fakes everyone out and sets up the move higher. This may go higher. I mean, I've liked this down since it was at 203, and we've talked about it all the way up, and here it comes. On the weekly chart, you can see we've got trying to break out. I think it was a little wedgy in here as it's drifting higher, and this pullback this week, the last 5 days or so, helps to correct a little bit of that. So it looks like it wants to go higher, and everybody keeps wanting to short it. So FireEye, it's just extended. You're just waiting to see what it does along the 10-day. Second Sight Medical, I like this pullback into the 10-day line this morning on light volume. After the pocket pivot here, you got several pocket pivots in the pattern. I'm going to guess this thing's going to try and trend higher, but it'll be volatile on the way up. I tend to buy it on the pullbacks into the 10-day and then sell it into the moves up, and that's worked pretty well for the most part. And it'll get a 10% move in a day or two, and that's a nice nice situation to be in when it happens. Let's see. Fortinet got hot the other day. This stock, again, you had to keep buying it anytime it came into the 10 or the 20-day, and now it's running higher. It's extended. So that is not something you want to buy. Intrexon is another one. We looked at this as it was coming around here. You had one pullback on Monday, and that was actually a place to step in, hold your nose, close your eyes, and buy it there right back near the 50-day, 20-day, using the 50-day as a guide for a stop. And now you're running back up to the highs of the base. So obviously yesterday it runs into resistance at the peak. Now you're kind of pulling back and trying to turn back up, and it's not really in any kind of a buy position. Shake Shack, everybody wants to talk about Shake Shack mainly because they saw this. And to a large extent, I would say that that's probably the end of the move because it hasn't really been able to hold anything, and you're not seeing any buyers coming in. But for the most part, I wouldn't be touching this. If it was able to hold in here, either along these lows or near the 10-20 day and show some spunk, I might be more interested in on the pullback. But to me, it looks a little spent. I mean, this thing has, if you go from where we first started looking at it down in here, remember, way back in March, thing is more than doubled. So, that may be it for now. It's going to need to build a big old base. Let's see. Vasco Data, again, a stock that's best bought on weakness after showing strength, and now it's kind of gotten up there, and last place to buy would have been right off the 10-day line last Friday. You could have bought it again on Monday morning when the market was down on the big gap down to start the week off on Monday, and now it's just continuing higher. and it's breaking out of this improper double bottom because the peak of the W in the pattern is improper, supposedly. But again, I don't really pay attention to any of that baloney because I think it is mostly baloney. You watch the, I think you watch the price volume action at the point of impact, which is where the stock's trading at right now, and you operate on that basis. You know, if you sat here and looked at this saying, oh, I'm not going to buy it here because it's improper, it's an improper base because somebody wants to slap a label on it, doesn't really work. So Mobileye, let's see. That's up there. I notice it's real tight. So, you know, selling into this move, I thought this was pretty sharp. I mean, I bought this thing down in here a couple of weeks ago, and then it had a nice shot to the upside, and I sell into this, but I was buying it back this morning. It dipped under 53, so just coming back into it. I think this thing has big stock potential, and it's just getting going here. There's a little resistance maybe from the left side of the base, but I think it can get a little higher before you start to see it build another flag or base formation. So I think I want to be in that one with at least a core position. Software, Skyworks Solutions rather. You had to close your nose or close your eyes, hold your nose, and buy right here on this shakeout to the 50-day after the breakout. But this is typical of breakouts, so when they pull in, always watching to see how they act. This one actually held up tight. I thought it could have been bought along the 20-day here. We talked about it last week. And it's going higher actually to new highs today and kind of stalling out. So we got triple witching today, right, Dr. Hay? Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, so there will be volatility. My take is use the volatility to your advantage if you can, and be patient. You know, I'll give you an example. A stock I own right now, I bought this morning under 115, was Zebra, and it is a smaller name. It trades 419,000 shares, but it's 116 bucks, and that means it's about 49 million, 50 million in daily average dollar volume, which is plenty. So the higher price compensates for the lower daily share volume, so you don't have to buy as many shares to get a decent position percentage-wise. So, you know, I just sit back and wait for it. It comes in below 115, starts scooping shares, and then what I notice is I'm trying to bid 114.66 for a measly 1,000 shares, and as soon as I put the order in and put the bid, and you see it show up on the level 2, and everybody scoots higher, and the thing's right back up above 115. So that kind of tells me, well, nobody really wants to sell this thing, so it looks good, and it should go higher. It's a radio frequency ID product, so that kind of figures in with the whole Internet of Things thing, where you can put a RFID chip in your kid's head and track them wherever they go. That's useful for some parents. Some of you might know what I'm talking about. Let's see. Facebook. Facebook has had 1, 2, 3 pocket pivots. The first 2 failed. But also the first 2 sort of came out of V-shaped positions. Now you do this again, and I'm wondering if based on the rule of 3 this thing doesn't go higher. So he's in the pullback today to pick up some shares. We'll see what happens. It's been going sideways for a long time. So when you have a situation like this where stock has been overowned for a long time, and I'd have to say, you know, everybody's been in love with Facebook, and it's probably widely owned, like Apple. Everybody loves it, everybody owns it, and you need to go through a period of time, if you have a chance at going higher, you need to go through a period of time where you shake out all the weak hands and you bring in a bunch of new hands that own it at the higher price. So the question becomes in my mind, okay, you had this breakout here on the weekly chart, and it failed, but that in this market, that doesn't necessarily mean too much, especially for a stock like Facebook. And you've seen the same thing with Apple. They just don't want to go down, and they get supported. You can see here on the weekly chart, you get a supporting week off the 200 or 40-week line, and you're starting to see better volume numbers on the upside on the weekly chart compared to, say, back in here, we're seeing heavier downside volume. So it may be that you've reached a point where you've washed out a lot of the weaker hands at these prices, and now the thing's setting up to go to 100. I think you'll see this go higher. It's probably the only viable social networker right now. Twitter, you know, it's kind of floundering, but I think you could see Facebook go higher if the market goes higher. If this breakout on the NASDAQ, which I think has been the lagging index as far as breaking out to new highs, but of course it was the hot the hot index in the year 2000 compared to everything else. So it's taken it longer to come back, which it now has. But you see Twitter trying to come back up. A little bear flag breakout. It's rallying up to the 20-day. I'm not sure. There's some news about they're doing something with tweets and making them live or something, or I forget. You can look it up. But stock's back at the 20-day. It's probably, obviously, if the market's going up, it's not a short. And I think if you're trying to short anything, you're just asking to be squeezed. LinkedIn is setting up very tight along the 10-day. Wouldn't surprise me if this one went higher. So Quibble today has quadruple witching, says Bree. Yeah, okay, quadruple, quintuple, whatever, triple, sextuple, whatever. It's witching, multiple witching days. So my take is if you quibble over stuff like that, you're probably not a very good investor because you're too anal retentive. But in any case, let's see, Biogen. Biogen turning here. You get a 5-day pocket pivot, I think. It's not, was it here? Yeah, right here. And it's trying to turn. You're seeing that in Celgene. But this has been my theory with these stocks. They're basically market-type names in the biotech area. And you've been seeing a lot of strength among smaller names. And we've seen that. You know, that's SUPN, we've seen Kithera go higher, we've seen XON go higher, RTRX, Xiop, GWPH, eyes, all of these have gone higher. So that space has been pretty robust, and I think you see these turn with the market because they're big market biotechs. So you get a pocket pivot here in Celgene, it's a bottom fisher. It's kind of a sloppy pattern. Probably goes higher. I thought it was viable this morning on the pullback, mainly because Biogen was just trucking higher, and it's now 413.78 up 12 bucks. Rock and roll. So these are turning, and they look good. PAYC is another one, holding very tight. I thought it was viable in here on the Voodoo pullback right there. You see that volume dries up extremely. 7 trading days ago, so right on the 10-day line. Takes a couple days to get going, and it's out of here. And this thing, this is a gap down off the peak that holds the prior breakout on the pullback in the 50-day line. Dutch, is there something? Okay, normally you don't like to see this kind of move, right? This gap down off the peak.
Right. I never want to see gap downs in a pattern.
So is there anything about this that you would evaluate differently?
Well, it recovered from the gap down in a very, I mean, the price action has been constructive, and then it had a nice high volume day 4 days ago on this one. And the gap down wasn't a horrible gap down. I mean, the stock lost about, I think, 10% from the prior day. So, you know, you call it maybe a, you know, it's not a mega gap. It's not like the type that you don't want to see, 20% or more. And you can also see that the fundamentals have been continuing to shape up. The earnings and sales are strongly accelerating on this one, and it's in a good group. You know, it's got the qualities that I like to see in a name that's under consideration. So, with all that said, this stock has done a very good job redeeming itself after that gap down. Therefore, it is a stock that could be in play in the near future. In other words, if it has another pocket pivot somewhere in the days or weeks ahead, then I would consider it.
Okay. Somebody asked, if you don't mind, what is your long exposure, i.e. 100% fully invested? Actually, I do mind, but not because it's really none of your business, but because it doesn't matter. It's kind of a meaningless number for me because I can go from 50% to 150% invested in a few seconds and back and forth because I work my positions very hard with large positions, and I trade them actively. So I'm not a static investor like they indoctrinate you over at IBD, where you buy 2% here and 2% there, and you average up as your stock is going up. So that way, when it pulls back 10%, you can be up to your eyeballs in stock and get hammered. I'm a little more nimble than that, and so I'm in and out on an ongoing basis. I can be all cash overnight and then come right back in the next day and be fully invested. So it's an irrelevant question. And if I told you I was 60% invested right now, what would that mean for you? Because I could be 150% by the close. I could be in cash by the close. So it's pretty meaningless. And I wouldn't fixate on what percentage invested you are. I'd be more fixated on whether what you're buying is going up. PAYC gap down was a secondary offering. Okay, good point, Scotty. You're on it. So yeah, that would have been an exception, a reason to make an exception. So anyways, GoPro. I thought this was a buy at the 20-day, but you got to keep in mind this thing's had a big move. So it's entitled to some sideways action here. You kind of wedged up into the 200-day line. Now you're pulling back. This looks pretty normal, holding tight along the 10-day. I wonder if there's still shorts or if there are any new shorts in there. I got to check the, I don't think the latest numbers are out yet. Short sales, let's see. Yeah, 2 days of short interest. That's about 11.5 million shares and a 65 million share. But that's a lot less than there were before. All the smart people who felt GoPro was, done. But the thing is trying to come up. It's still in the sort of a, low spot in its base overall. So, it may need some time to go sideways, and maybe it does that. So I'd be watching this for the next buy setup. And I'd contrast this a little bit with Mobileye, which is further up in its pattern and actually looks a lot like it wants to just go higher. Baba, this is a dog. I think China got hammered overnight. I think the Shanghai and the Shenzhen were both down over 6%, and I think they had their worst week, or the Shenzhen had its worst week since 2008, which is pretty bad, I guess. Not that I really keep track of it, but Chinese stocks got decimated overnight, and it seems like what I think is interesting is the fact that despite the fact that China got ripped overnight, the U.S. is kind of yawning at it, I think. Down 37 right now in the Dow, Nasdaq's off 5. Just below the all-time high, sitting at 51.27 and change right now as we speak, and I think that's interesting. So, do we see a movement of money out of these emerging markets like China and into the U.S.? It's a possibility. Cheetah, never mind. Let's see. Yeah, the pocket pivot pulls into the 10-day, so you got to buy it coming into the 10-day this morning. It looks good, but it is a Chinese stock, but it's one that's holding up. So maybe there's something going on. I noticed I was watching this one, Auto Home, which I think is a Chinese stock too. Is that right? Are they?
I believe so. No, Auto. Yeah, I think. Let me see.
Wait a minute. China. Yeah.
Yeah, they are.
They're a provider of independent interactive content to automobile buyers. So this was looking pretty interesting coming around. You see the volume drop right there at the 20-day underneath the 50, and then you're pulling in. I don't know if something like this becomes buyable. I was also watching BitAuto. This is another Chinese one. Yeah, now it's getting hit. I wonder what Baidu's up to. Let's see, Baidu. Baidu's actually up on the day, and that's a big Chinese stock. So you're seeing some of these smaller names get hit. HTP, I've been watching this one. This is, we talked about this before. They're involved with, oh heck. What am I thinking? What's the platform?
They're doing a data management software. They do the big data stuff.
Yeah, it's called something though. Hoodoo. Yeah, is the name of the platform. It's an open source platform, I guess. But this thing's pretty volatile, but it's trying to go higher. I think you watch this. It's a cup with handle, a little boxy, but holding tight. If you're going to try and buy something like this, I think they're losing money. I think you buy it on pullbacks, and you can see in a single day it can rock around 10%, which is kind of volatile. Hadoop, sorry, that's what it is. Hadoop, not Hoodoo. I'm thinking Creedence Clearwater. That's kind of in my head, that one down on the bayou. Chasing down a hoodoo there. Anybody know that song? You can date yourself along with me, please. Okay. Bluebird Bio. This has been a great stock since it's just been trucking higher, pulling back, but nothing really It's hard to figure out what it's doing now. It's just kind of building a base. Acorn is on the comeback trail. Get a pocket pivot yesterday. You also actually had a pocket pivot here on Tuesday, and then you have a little pullback. Could have bought it. It's going higher right now. And a couple of gap downs. I think because there's another company coming up with a competing product, but that could get shrugged off, and you wash everybody out, and that turns higher just because it's going with the market. Somebody says, yes, they know the song. So that you qualify as an old fart, I think, then, in that case. We talked about Ambarella. How about GoGo? GoGo is not going anywhere today. It's pulling back. It's been trying to break out, but it's really not going anywhere. I think they want to see what the earnings look like. This is a strong area of growth, but I have to think that the airlines have put a lid on this short term, because you see Southwest has been pretty weak. Delta has been pretty weak. American Airlines has been pretty weak. Say, which is one I've been shorting on the way down, is really weak. I'm wondering if some of these are going to try and turn, though, off their lows. If they did, then maybe GoGo would have a shot at going higher. Somebody says, older than you believe. Okay. Let's see. Taser. Let's go to Taser. Taser probably was viable on this pullback, and volume drying up on the pullback. Holds along the 10 and the 20 day. And now it's pulling in, so it looks okay. Just hanging in there. I was talking about, yeah, Baba stinks, and I noticed JD, which was looking very strong last week, is just coming apart. And this is a little bit disconcerting, but I think, again, this is probably due to the trashing that China got overnight. So Apple just floundering underneath the 50-day. This may go lower, and I may get to a point. Remember back in, if you guys remember, back in late 2012, it topped and it broke down, and it kept going lower throughout the first half, roughly, of 2013, but the market went higher at that time. So you can have periods where a big stock like Apple will decouple from the market, but that could be made up for, compensated for, by Amazon, which acting well. You had a pocket pivot yesterday. I tend to like this on weakness if I'm going to buy it. And Netflix also going higher, but again, probably better on weakness coming into the 10-day. I noticed Google had a pocket pivot yesterday, but it's kind of in a, this is a weekly chart. It's kind of in a funky spot, so not all that exciting to me. Let's see. Going back to the biotechs, here's Zyop. He had a pocket pivot here. It's gone higher. CRM, Salesforce.com. He had to buy it off the 50-day on Monday. You see how this all works when they look kind of grim? You got to pull back on light volume on Monday. You got to step in and take shares. And now it's back up to the highs of the range, and maybe it pulls in again. So prefer to buy these things on weakness. GW Pharmaceuticals, another one acting pretty well. I mean, you got tight and volume dried up here, and then it pops out here on a pocket pivot. Now you're kind of swishing back and forth. And again, best bought on weakness. Data, but could have been bought along the 20-day here, and now it's just slowly edging higher. Kind of reminds me, if you look at Fortinet, this had slowly edging higher, and then it gets a little bit of momentum. I'm wondering if, look at Zebra, similar sort of situation, an ascending type of pattern. Let's see. Palo Alto Networks is just extended. Could have bought it, I guess, here at the 10-day a couple of weeks ago, but it just keeps going higher. And, this is an area of decent strength in the market, and you have to be in some of these names when they start moving. Of course, for me, the cyber was a big play off the 62 level when they priced the secondary last Thursday. Let's see. Somebody said, every time I think of a question, I know what you're going to say. Now I need to act on it. Should I be a billionaire? I don't know. It depends on how much money you make, I suppose, over time. But you could be, I suppose. After all, Warren Buffett is. Retrofin, pull back to the 20-day here. And then again earlier, they're just hanging out. It looks okay. How about this AMAG? This is a very interesting stock. It's kind of volatile, though. I think it was Bible. Didn't we put out a pocket pivot alert here, I think, right at the 10-day, and it's trying to go higher. Great fundamentals. Stock's already had a pretty big move, but it acts okay. I mean, I think I'd prefer trying to buy it on scooping it up on some weakness. IDTI, not really one that's big.
It went on 29th.
What's that? On the 29th? Okay.
Yeah, we first mentioned it
on AMAG.
28th.
Okay. So this one's just hanging along the 10-day, not much. Again, you know, if you got to be opportunistic, Monday was the day to buy this thing when the market gapped down, right at the 20-day. So Avago is, yeah, that's a voodoo kind of action. So this looks viable here. The other stocks that this one might be viable here. See how you had a breakout here? It's come all the way in. It's doing what SWKS did before, but SWKS came out, Skyworks came out, and NXPI, go back to that, it's just kind of fluttering along here, and hopefully it doesn't fail, but you could try it and use a tight stop in here. I mean, that's the one advantage of waiting to buy it on this pullback rather than chasing strength. And so Avago is another strong chip company, had a big move and now pulling in. See how you could have bought off the 20-day here. And you're drawing up today on triple witching. And this looks okay. Could be bought here possibly. I think you're using the 20-day as a short-term selling guide or this low. Because remember, not everything needs to stay trending higher with the moving average. If you find a level of support on a pullback, that can also be a reference point rather than just sticking to the moving average. So, you know, pullback points can be the 10-day here, the 20-day, or down to this low, which you would expect to serve as support as it has once before. So, EBIX, there's another name that's been acting okay. And here you got to pull back. Your volume is drawing up here right along the 10-day. So it's a low-risk entry point, you know, rather than chasing the strength up here, just waiting for it to come in, and now it's sort of settling in here. Market's down. We're pushing down 48. And it's quadruple witching today, so I'm not going to worry about it. And we had, I mean, last week was a great run. Anybody who's long stocks, if you were buying yesterday, I think you're kind of late. There were plenty of things to be buying, you know, the week before over prior days, and we've seen some stocks have some great moves before the NASDAQ broke out to new highs yesterday. I'm seeing eyes turning back to the upside here. That's looking okay. That was if you bought up the 10-day earlier, that's a good entry point. I don't know about right now. Let's take a look at this. I mean, it's hanging in there. But if you saw any other pullbacks below 15, probably should be all over it. Any other names that people want to talk about? I think I did. I covered all these social networks. Like LinkedIn looks like it might want to go higher. What other stuff? You know, oils, kind of still watching silicon, not really happening. There's some other oils we're looking at. MTDR, that's kind of fallen apart. FANG kind of fallen apart. And I think most of this is because oil is not really doing anything. And so the prospects for some sort of recovery aren't really there yet. But there is this one, Antero Midstream Partners. This actually mostly, I think, has a big yield. It's a new issue, came public here, and it's been up several weeks in a row trying to go higher. So, you know, we'll see what happens with that. Dr. K, are you there? You're there. How is your UVXY model?
You mean the XIV model?
The XIV model, yes.
UVXY is, carries a little bit too much risk, so the XIV seems to work pretty well so far, very well. So I just want to get more data points under its belt, and then we'll go live on it.
Okay, so that's how it is. Let's see. Any other questions? I don't know. You know, the way I look at the market right now, it's like, okay, if you've been long stocks for the last week or so, you've been doing pretty well. And are you going to come piling in here? No, you should already probably have been working things on the long side. From my perspective, I'll sell things into strength and then start looking at where I want to buy them back, and take advantage of any weakness I see to come into favorite names, and just kind of work it that way. But I know pretty much from having dealt with this market for a while now that you don't want to chase strength. You want to be patient and wait for your pullbacks, and they will come, and you just have to wait. Even if you see something streaking higher, for the most part, you can just relax and let things play out. Don't allow yourself to be influenced too much by greed, because when people see something like this going on, this kind of move, they want to buy the first pullback, and they just want to get into it because they're certain that it's going to have another huge move, and just go to 200 or something. And that's really not very realistic or really intelligent in my view. A Cinderella comes maybe once, maybe twice, but by the third time she's run out of shoes. So you get a big move, pull back, another big move. Yeah, I don't know. You're kind of pushing it. So let's see. Somebody, just a general question for General BS for all the techies out there. Anybody think the Apple Watch is going to be viable? Seems like a ridiculous item to me, as one always needs their phone nearby just for the sake of conversation. I had a friend down from the Bay Area over the weekend. He has college-age kids, and they wanted Apple Watches, and he says that they love them. So I don't know. All the kids are getting them. So I don't know. I don't. I didn't. To tell you the truth, I didn't really think much of the iPad when it first came out. I actually called it a smudge machine, because you use this thing with your fingers, and after a while it's just covered with oils and looks kind of disgusting. But now I have one, and of course I keep my cleaners nearby, my wipes, so I can wipe it down on a regular basis, like every 20 minutes, because I'm very anal retentive about being neat. I'm a neat freak of sorts. My wife might argue with that, but I like to think of myself as a neat freak, at least when it comes to my technology. So I keep my computers, my iPads, my iPhone, anything else very clean. But and somebody points out, same with the MP3, same thing with the iPod when they came out with that. Remember, Microsoft came out with the Zune, and nobody knows about that. So Apple's product dominated, and everybody thought it was a simple thing that anybody could duplicate, and who would want a simple MP3 player? Anybody could make one, and they're not that exciting, but it turned into something very exciting. And you just don't know. And I've found that trying to come to some hard judgment about something and decide that that this is never going to take off, yeah, you may be surprised. You never know. The market's always about possibilities and potential rather than limiting factors. So do you have any take on the iWatch, Dr. K? Do you have one yet?
No, I'm not. I don't really have much take on it, except the bottom line and how much it's addressing Apple's profits. But no, as far as a device, I don't really have a whole lot of interest. I have a friend who's using an Android equivalent, and he claims it's vastly superior, and he's a techie. So when he comes next week, I'm going to have him show it to me in more detail.
Okay. I don't know. I see a lot of people my age going for the big iPhone 6 and the Samsung 6, whatever that is. But they're the big screen. I see everybody with these big screen phones. So, this friend of mine, he came down, and I should point out, he actually still owns Apple shares. I think he bought 300 or 400 shares back in 1984, not too long after they came public, or when they came public. And he still owns those shares. So he now has something like 5,600 after all the splits. So he's doing okay with that. So he's definitely an Apple file. I think that's mostly lucky. But he bought something that's, but he has a big iPhone 6, which looks to me like a mini iPad mini, something like that. Anyways, the Surface Pro 3 is vastly superior to the iPad. I'm actually thinking about, thanks for mentioning that, Bradley. I'm thinking about getting one of those, just because it looks like, I like the iPad sort of you know, the ease of using it, the lightness. You can sit with it in a chair. You don't have a big laptop in your lap. And I'm thinking about getting one of those. So, because it runs all the Windows programs that I use. Anyways, let's see. I have a Surface Pro 3 for HCSI. Does it run pretty well on that, Scotty? Yes. Okay. You guys are swaying me. I may run out to Best Buy this afternoon. They're only like 800 bucks anyways. Somebody else says Surface Pro 3 is great. Okay. I'll take it. Order me 5. Let's see. Anyways, just looking at Intrexon zipping back above the 50 level. Red Hat kind of flopping out here. Tesla kind of just pulling back. Mobileye pulling in, but that, you know, that looks very normal to me. Let's see, Facebook pulling in, that looks normal too. EDSI holding up okay. Yeah, most of the movement today looks kind of normal. I don't see anything really bad outside of what I'm seeing in BABA and JD. So, all right, anything else? Like I said, I don't, somebody said my Surface is about 1800. Wow. Apple Watch, very likely to be successful. Say with version 3 in any event, it will help sell more iPhones. Yeah, it may be. So just watch the stock, you know. That's really all I have to do. Let's see. What else? No other questions. So like I said, I think if you were long this market, you were long before the NASDAQ broke out to new highs on the basis of what individual stocks are doing. And I think that's the proper strategy to take in this market. You watch the stocks, don't get so fixated with the indexes, and you'll be fine. Because it has been more of a market of stocks than anything else. So, somebody says Surface gets expensive if you want the most powerful chip and the most storage. All right, well, I'll check it out. Anyways, any other questions? I don't have much else to say here, and I'm ready to sign off. Got anything else to add, Dr. K?
No, I think we should enjoy the opportunities as they present themselves, and there have been numerous. So,
Yeah.
you know, the market averages may be vicious for market timing, but the stock story is entirely different. So let's keep our eyes peeled.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line is this: if you this is your breakout on the Nasdaq. If this holds, then I think you're in. You know, you're doing fine in terms of if you want to use the indexes as a reference to whether you want to be in the market or not. But I think if this holds a breakout, and it could pull back and test the top here, come in maybe just a little bit down to 5100. You know, but if it continues higher, I think you're going to see a lot more names working a lot more strongly. And I think that's really kind of your reference point. So for now, you know, as you get a breakout in the NASDAQ, S&P is probably going to follow up, but the Russell 2000 was already out there, and it's been making highs for a long time. So we use IWM breaking out as well. So, you know, the range is now resolved to the upside, and the only thing that's going to negate that would be a reversal back through the breakout point. And that ain't happening today, so I don't think it's going to. I think by the close, the indexes are up, and you know, just remain opportunistic and alert, and just keep your buy watch list and watch what's coming in and where it's coming into, and whether that represents a low risk entry point, given that you can determine a close by or nearby point for a selling guide or stop. Okay? All right, that's all we got, you guys. Thanks for showing up as always. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you next week. Take care.
So, everyone.